Welcome back, guys. This is Thanks for Your Money, and we're going to play on Vision. Yeah, I mean, here we have a range advantage on 976 since we did 3-bet, but this opponent who 4-bet is very likely to have aces. So this is a board that we can uh, bet very, very often. Whether or not you bet 25% or pot, I mean, you can pick up both sizes. So he bets 1/3. I think I prefer a call here. I think I prefer a call um, because actually all the hands are going to get played as calls just because if he has the 3-better, he's not going to have many tens or sevens. So you are either ahead with your flash draw, or you are behind if you have a set against a flash or something like that. For example, if you have the nut flash, you're going to call as well here. In fact, PLO recommends to call all hands and not to have a racing range. Yeah. And also you're going to call sometimes with the ace of spades and nothing more. And although apparently there is a small racing range with that particular combo. For example, something like ace 7 with the ace of spades, you're going to raise just because you want to bluff out spades. Okay, use 6-7, he donks, which is pretty strong. Here, I think I have to fold. With hearts, you would call. Even with spades, you are just folding. But here, without a backdoor spade draw, it's a very clear fold. But even with the backdoor spades, it's just a fold. That's because when he's leading, he's representing a lot of of strength. With backdoor spades, I think you can call here. Without backdoor spades, or with bad backdoor spades, it's just a fold. And of course, you would call with hearts, and you can actually raise with hearts and queen, since you are blocking top set, and he's not that likely to have many 4s or 3s on his range. Even against something like ace king queen 4, something like that, you're doing just fine. Maybe even ahead. This is a clear check. You do not hold any spades. With spades, you would bet with the ace high, with the ace x of spades. Even with a high spade, you can bet something like ace king 10-7 or ace king 10-7 with the king of spades. It's probably better to bet with the king of spades than to bet with the 10 of spades. And yeah, you are also blocking with those 7, which is this is important. If you have something like ace king 10-6, now with just one spade, you are not going to bet all the time. And yeah, having the 7 is important because you are blocking top set. probably just a check. You have some showdown value, but your hand is really not strong to call a check raise. Even with two backdoors, you check most of the time. Also here, if a jack comes, you do not hold on as, which is unfortunate. So that's why you tend to check here. 3 7 6. I think I would just check this back. We do not have backdoors. Um, we're blocking top set, which apparently is important here. And but yeah, apparently here, because you do not have backdoors, you tend just to bet out. On some occasions, having backdoors is a reason to bet. On other occasions, it's a reason to check. I haven't yet figured out why this is the case, but mm, well, maybe here you don't really want to see the turn just because you are not going to get any backdoor. And maybe also it is the case that the out of position player is not going to raise you very often at all on this board. So yeah, maybe it's just better just to bet out and then check back some turns. I think I can bet here having the 5 as a blocker. Um, so here having two backdoors is a reason to bet. Mm, let me see, 6 4 3, 6 4 3 rainbow. What I'm thinking is that maybe you are going to call a check raise here with the backdoors. Excuse me. So yeah, ace 5 6 9. Let's say we bet and someone raise. Yes, apparently we're calling. We're probably more happy to call with two backdoors. In reality, I don't hate a fold if you get check raise even with two backdoors, just because it's not very likely that you are going to get check raise. I think here it's better just to fold just because he could check raise you, which is a disaster. If this was heads up, um, I think it's probably okay to call. Here, I think I would bet 50%, and this is a board which is not particularly favorable for a range, but we can still see bet like 40%, and our hand is actually quite strong here with two pairs and the flush draw, so betting 50% seems reasonable. Without the hearts, you can bet 50 or you can just spot just because you hate if a heart comes on the turn. I think this is probably a check most often than not. You're allowed to bet 30% of the time. With ace queen jack jack, it's kind of going to showdown. Uh, with aces, you can bet maybe 30-40% of the time. And with sevens, maybe, yeah, 30 or 40%. Okay, 60% of the time. Yeah, okay. Mm, I think calling or raising seems fine. Um, here it is nice the fact that he did three bets, so he's not very likely actually to have tens or eights or fours. Um, yeah, he could have something like kings and hearts, or yeah, he's going to have some two pairs sometimes, like with ace jack 10 9 or ace 10 9 8 kind of hand, but yeah, I think you're doing fine here by raising. And also, yeah, if a heart comes, it's very obvious for your opponent, so the playability on the turn is not as great here. So yeah, just check raising seems fine here. This is a clear check because you're not blocking the king or hearts. Yeah, even with a bad flush draw, you tend to check. And yeah, sometimes with hearts, you can bet pot or just check. And maybe try to go for a check raise against two opponents. With bad hearts and spade draw, this is suggesting to bet 33% and probably fall to a raise and a call. That's what he's probably betting, just 33%, I would say. Um, I think this is probably just a fold here. Yes, it is true that you can have the best hand, but you do not have backdoors here. Even with a spades, it's actually a fold here, but without any backdoor equity, it's just going to be hard to play this. This has to be a check 100% of the time, just because this guy is going to have aces very often, and he's going to pot very often here. So yeah, this is most of the time at least a check. Um, for example, you are going to check sevens, threes, something like ace four five, then you may tend to lead some percentage of the time at least. But yeah, I mean, if you check all your hands, it's probably not a very big mistake, I would say. Ace for four, he has to check on his shoes. I think he has to bet 25% of the time, just because he's going to do this with all his range. Yeah, like 96% of his range. So yeah, uh, although it it, it would seem that it's better just to check back, since you have a range advantage, is GTO recommends to bet all your hands for a small size in here. And yeah, even when you have aces, or even if you have something like ace for four, okay, or fours. Ace is four. Ace is four. You check sometimes, but yeah, just betting with all your range 25% seems fine. This is an easy fold. I think I prefer to bet 50 because we're holding the ace of hearts, and this is very relevant on this hand. Um, Without the ace of hearts, we would just check. And yeah, with the ace of hearts, we tend to bet here. And with three hearts, it's probably just a check raise, probably. Okay, this is quite strong actually. I'll go. I mean, I guess the sizing is very small, but it's a bit tricky. Also, if you have the ace x of spades, you tend to call, although you can raise to 50%, just 1/3 of the time. Not even, I mean, in general, you tend to check almost always, and the hands that you may prefer to raise are the hands that are not blocking pairs, or when you have three spades, because when you have three spades, your opponent is more likely to have a set. So yeah, something like ace 9 4, which you are not blocking um, your opponent from having a set. It's a hand that you may want to raise, but in general, just calling. For example, any ace 8 with the spades is just a call. 4 deuce. Bet 4. I think we have to call because we have the gut shot with the 3 and then the kings. But yeah, on the turn, it's probably a mix between folding and calling, although probably more calling than folding. This is obviously an easy call, right? 9 5 4. I think here is just a call you are not folding better hands than yours. And so yeah. I think the spotting or betting half seems fine. And with just two hearts, you tend to bet pot. When you have hearts and spades, you tend to bet smaller just because the turn is going to be easier to play. Turn and river. Yeah, with just the ace of hearts, I think you can bet 15, then probably fold to a raise, just because you are blocking the flush draws, and your opponent is more likely to have two pairs or sets. This is an easy check. This is a weird donk. I think I'm just spotting here. The reason is that calling here is it's a bit transparent. It shows a lot of strength anyway, um, so yeah, it's better just to raise. And also you are up against two opponents, so if 2, 4, 5, 6, it's really not great. If you want to call, you prefer to have something like ace 4, 5, those kind of hands. It's a bit more appealing to call. That's because you are blocking your opponent's outs. I think we can call. We have a pair and we have backdoor clubs here. I don't like the raise. Just your hand is not strong enough, even with the backdoors. Last draws. 8 for 3. I think we're blocking with the fives and we have backdoor spades. So I think it's better to bet here. So yeah, the gut shot with the also blocking hearts with the 5 of hearts and the backdoor spades is just a reason to bet. For example, if you have spades but no 5 of hearts, you're just checking back. So yeah, very bad hand here. Even apparently with backdoor spades, or no, with backdoor spades you are not going to call, but even with one hard blocker. But with two backdoors you are going to call, or with just a hard draw. Then 8-8. This is a call, a raise. Mm, I mean, yeah, calling or raising, they all seem fine. You seem to raise a bit more here just because you are not blocking hearts or an 8. The difference between here and here is that on this occasion, you are blocking your opponent from having this X of space, so the check raise is more likely to contain hearts. Because sometimes you're going to check raise here with backdoor spades and gadget. And yeah, a hand like that could be a check raise bluff. Yeah, I think this is a pot here, and yeah, you're going to pot almost all boards. Check. Here, what I was thinking is, first of all, we're blocking with the nines, and also the kings are blocking the continuation uh, range of our opponent, and also we're blocking with the nine of hearts. Probably this is a check because it's the nine of hearts. If this was the king of hearts or the ace of hearts, I'm pretty sure this would be a bet. Yeah, for example, yeah, the king of hearts is a bet, and for sure with the ace of hearts, this would be a bet as well. So yeah, the nine of hearts is not strong enough to bet here, apparently. This is probably just a check. Mm, no, I think it's a bet, although it's close because you have a medium made hand and a medium draw. That being said, you have top pair, which is always an important, which is always nice to have because you're blocking top set. And yeah, you're also blocking your opponent from having the nine of hearts, which is it's a key card in the check raise range of your opponent. Anyway, a Jack nine deuce could be a check back. So that's kind of mixed strategy. This guy is kind of likely to have kings. And I think this is a fold on this. Yeah, if this was heads up, it's probably a call, but the problem is that if you call, he could check raise both of you, so that's why you tend to be a bit more. Um, you tend to fold a bit more when there is someone still to to play, right? If this was heads up or on this position, maybe you're calling with the ace 10 7 5. We do not with your nut gadget and also backdoor hearts. Um, okay, folding. Yeah, probably a bit ambitious to call here. Yeah, I think this is a nice check back, probably. About 10. Mm. Yeah, I guess it's relevant to have a gadget here. Yeah, something. This is an easy fold. Easy fold. Easy fold since you're not blocking the sevens or four or eight. I think this has to be a call. I don't like a raise here because when he's donking, he represents quite a lot of strength. And I think checking and calling probably makes a strategy here. The thing is, you would like to have a heart here. Without a heart, it's a bit better to just to check back. And yeah, without backdoor spades, you are just bet folding. Mm, yeah, and with backdoor spades, you are check calling most likely. I think here betting 50 makes sense. Your hand is very strong. Any queen, a jack, 7, 8, or 6 gives you a straight. So the 6, the 7 are going to give you the nuts. And also the 10-9 favors your range. So a fold. Um, Even with backdoor spades are actually folding apparently. Just because he's just representing aces and you did 3-bet an under the gun player. His range should contain aces and sometimes ace jack 10-9 double suited kind of hand. Here I think you can maybe call one with the king for the pair the 10 blocking the, the flashes. And without the 10 of spades, it's actually a call, apparently. Okay, just folding here. With two backdoors, you can call one. Yeah. Um, I guess that when he dunks, he's kind of likely to have aces. Here, I think I like a bet. Um, just because I'm blocking the 5-6 with my two sixes. And I have a flush draw. Without a flush draw, it's just a give up. I think I'm going to check because he's very likely to have or likely to have kings here. Um, when they flat your range on the button or cutoff, your underdog and opening, they are somehow likely to have kings just because kings is a hand that you want to call, but you don't really want to 3-bet because when you're facing a 4-bet, your equity is pretty bad. So, and here you can also you're not blocking any pair. So yeah, just going for a check call or check raise, because if he bets, he calls, you could check raise, although I think on this occasion you are going probably just to check call just because you do not have any gotcha. But I'm not sure about that, if it's just a check call or a check raise if there are two other players on the hand. Here, I think would just call just because I have to pair, and yeah, I only need like 20% equity or so at this point. Calling probably. Yeah, I mean, check raising would be to turn your hand into a bluff, and also there is another opponent yet to talk, so it's a bit. Here, I think it's kind of funny that with the aces 10 deuce, he just called the 3-bet and he didn't 4-bet. I would say that normally with this particular hand, you wanna 4-bet more often than not. And here it's mixed between folding and raising, although you kind of prefer to raise, and calling is the worst option, probably because um, yeah, you hate to see a 5, a 6, a 7. I think this has to be a fold, although it's tempting to call just because you have 4 probably clean outs and some backdoor equity. So maybe you have 20 or 25% of equity, but here you need like 30%. So yeah, you're you will need just a bit more of equity. I think that's calling. It's close. I actually with two backdoors to call, although it's close because if he has 9 jack, you are in a lot of trouble. It's a fold here. With hearts, you would just raise, although not particularly happy about the situation. And here, I think the spotting here, because you are not blocking the king, queen, that kind of hands. Even with ace, king, queen, you're just most of the time just spotting here. In fact, all your range almost is spotting. So 247. With just a pair and no backdoors, I think it's time to fold. With some backdoor flashes, you can call. You have a range advantage with the when the ace comes, and because of this reason, you're allowed to get 75, 68% of your hands. Here you have top two, and you do not want to see a turn or a river because your hand is not going to improve. So it's better just to bet out. If you have aces, is you can check a bit more. Uh, That's because you're going to have some playability on turns and rivers. With aces, you're going to bet out when you do not have king, queen, or jack. But when you have top set and something like aces, king, jack, which you are blocking a bit the straight uh, draws of your opponent, then you're a bit more likely to check, or you can check sometimes. For example, here with aces, king, jack, and having to backdoor, or yeah, you're going to check 50% of the time, or just having one backdoor hard draw, you're going to check yeah, 100% of the time. So, okay, it's king jack. I don't think it's time to use blockers here. That's because, well, first of all, he could be leaving with queen 10, or he could have something like two pair and a flush draw, which are you're not going to make to get falls like that hand by the river. So whenever you're using blockers, you tend you like to have some backdoor equity or some additional equity. Also, he's a preflop raiser, so he would have aces, and if he has aces, you are not going to make aces fall on the turn, or so it's just no point in using your blockers here. If you had a hard draw, sometimes folding, sometimes calling, sometimes raising. It's just yeah, probably difficult to implement, but sometimes you want to raise because you have a mediocre made hand and a mediocre draw. So sometimes you decide to raise with those draws. And sometimes, but the problem is that sometimes they're going to go against the nut flush draw, and you're in a lot of trouble then. Here it's an easy. I think it is folding here. Although you have the ace of hearts, which is nice, probably heads up you could call, I guess. But here you are three-way. He's representing a lot of strength by leading against two opponents. And yeah, there is someone still to speak. He could raise you, and then you have to fold. So it's just better just to fold out. Also, if you're holding the ace X of hearts, you're just calling just because when he donks, he's really representing a strength like 6-7 or sets to pair and flush draw kind of hand. This is an easy fold. 2-9. This is an easy fold as well. This, I would say, favors the out of position player. I think with this queen 5-4, I want to bet because I have the queen of hearts, and this is a relevant blocker, I would say. I know, but we have to pair. Okay, okay. Yeah, what I was thinking is that we do not have playability on turns and rivers, but we have to pair at the moment. If we had something like is queen 6-7 with the queen of hearts, I think it's a bet is preferred. Apparently not. Okay, so yeah, my analysis was wrong. We have showdown value, but we would hate a check raise. So that's most of the time just a check. When you have two pair, especially top and bottom, and no backdoor or anything, you kind of tend to check on this PLO. I think I'm raising here. This is kind of mediocre made hand, mediocre draw. So on those occasions, you tend to raise actually. And yeah, sometimes you're going to go against the not flush draw and the better made hand. But I mean, there is a lot of money out there. So here, I think it's fine to fold here because you kind of need 40% equity here. And the problem is that you do not hold the nut flush. With the nut flush, you're with the nut flush draw, you're going to call. But without the nut flush draw, you could be up against the nut flush draw with a made hand, like ace, 7, 8, 5, for example, or ace, king, jack 8, which is that would be terrible for your hands, and since your ace, king, and jack are not out. Well, this is obviously an easy fold here. Probably just a check back. What I'm thinking is that although our hand doesn't have a lot of playability on the turn and river, this is true. But at the same time, we're not blocking the 10, jack, queen, and yeah, so we are not blocking the check raising range of our opponent. And we have some showdown value with our 9, so it's just a check. Here, actually, with two backdoors, you prefer to bet, apparently. Uh, Probably thinking, well, for starters, you have more equity, and also you're probably going to be able to call a check raise with two backdoors. Even with one backdoor, you're probably calling a check raise. Okay, so he should check and he should pot like almost 100% of the time. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to have sevens to resort deuce very often at all. And calling, yes. He should pot with a king queen jack. We're going to fold, I guess. Even with the backdoors, you need 30% equity and you probably have 15, 20% maybe. 10 to 20% probably. Here, I think I like a bet just because, well, we have medium made hand, medium draw. Um, but yeah, apparently it's just a check this. With backdoor spades, you are more likely to bet. Yeah, if this was king, king, queen 4, now I think we would bet with with hearts just because, yeah, it's much better to have kings than to have queens on this spot, since he could have kings or this player could have kings. So just because of this small difference, it's just you can bet with kings. Easy fold. Here I like a pot here because we have king 7. Our hand is not going to improve on turns and rivers. Um, so yeah, it's just better just to bet out when you have top 2 these 3 bet pots. With kings, I think you can bet like 30% of the time. Well, a bit more, like 50% of the time. For example, when you have um, yeah, kings without hearts, you're a bit more likely to bet. Uh, if you have kings and hearts, you can just check and hope that this player bets, and then if he calls, you raise, or you probably raise anyway, just because there is a ton of money out there by that moment. You should check very often here. Call. Yeah, I mean it's close. Maybe with this 6 of spades you can call. Without a spade you are just folding. I would prefer to have the king of spades though. And here we have an easy call. Even folding with spades, which is a bit surprising. Uh, but yeah, maybe folding. Yeah, the problem of having a spades here is that having the 10-4 of spades, if you are up against the jack X of spades, you are in a lot of trouble. So probably that's why you are just folding. Um, Here I think I would just bet. Well, for starters, you can bet 50% of the time. Here, with this particular combo, having no, you're not blocking hearts. So it's a disaster if a heart comes on the door. So yeah, you can just bet out with 2 hearts. They're actually more likely just to check raise here. Just because if your opponent has the ace-x of hearts, he's most likely going to bet anyway, so you can just check raise him here. Here, I think just calling. Although you have blockers, he's saying that he has ace queen, so in fact you're calling 100% of the time. With something like ace queen, I think ace queen and 2 pairs, they're going to bet. Ace queen, king jack, they're going to raise, but if you have something like ace queen 6-7, it's just a call. So you only want to 3-bet the flop when you have some backdoors equity. Even ace queen 6-7 with the backdoor flush draw is just a call. So to bet, 3-bet. Here, I think I like to bet 50%, although your hand is quite strong, and it's a bit tempting just to check back with your top set and not flash. I think that your opponent is still going to call with some hands like king jack, king 10, or you know, even if he has ace queen and he check raises you, you are a favorite on this hand, so it's not a big problem if he check raises you. In fact, you are kind of happy to see that. 4 5 6. I think just okay. Betting a small. Um, yeah, I mean this is probably a bit tricky to implement, but there are some times when, since you're using small sizing and big sizing, that you want to, yeah, that you want to bluff here. You want to bluff with some combos here. You have your hand has threes, which is blocking a bit the straights. Also, you have the queen of hearts, which is interesting to have since you're blocking flush draws, and you have backdoor spades, which is kind of a blocker. So because of this particular combination, you can mix and bet a 33% pot. For example, if you just have the queen of hearts and no backdoor spades, or no, not backdoor spades, you are just going to check the backdoors to bet. So yeah, it's interesting. Also, you are exploiting the fact that this player shouldn't have many 7 8s, and that this player check. So it's kind of a tip stab on the board with a bad hand with some backdoors. Here, um, here is kind of similar. He bet because he doesn't have showdown value, but he has the six of hearts, which is blocking. The jack is blocking also with the straight draws and also backdoor spades. So that's why he bet. But when you're facing a check raise, although you have some backdoors, some backdoor equity is just a fold. 2 4 5. This is a. I think this is just a check. The problem here is that you do not have hearts. With the nut flush, you're just spotting. With backdoor, with just two hearts, but not the nut flush, you're just checking and probably folding against two opponents. Against one opponent, I think you can probably stick it in just because against one opponent, it is likely that your mate hand is good or that your draw is alive. But against two opponents, uh, your mate hand may be dead and your flush draw may be dead as well. So that's why you tend to check with a bad flush draw against two opponents. He should check a lot, and this guy should, I think, uh, just potting. I mean, he's going to pot very, very often. It's not a very particularly good flop, but I mean, there's a ton of money out there. So 29, I think just checking back. Okay, betting. Well, yeah, and now that I think about it, it's better just to bet. The reason why it's better to bet is that your playability on turns and rivers is awful. If you have a if if you get a queen or a 10, it's someone may have already a straight. So I mean, if they bet into you, you probably have just to fold. Um, an eight of for sure is a good card. An ace, you probably still have to call, but someone may have aces, particularly this player. So yeah, this hand is not going to be very strong on turns and rivers. So it's better probably just to bet and yeah, and hope that they follow. So you're blocking with the queen ten, the straight draws, which could check raise you on the flop, and also you have a backdoor. You have a spade draw. So yeah, because but your spade draw on the turn, you may not want to call with a bad spade draw. So that's why you are a bit more likely to bet with this bad spade draw, and with the ace x of hearts, you tend to check a bit more, just because you may be able to call a bet on the turn with this with your nut flash. So yeah, kind of too weak to check back, kind of can with some blockers, so it's better just to bet these. They should check very, very often because this guy is representing aces. He bets, so he didn't have aces. And with this hand, this is the fold, a raise. Well, um, here when there is three fives, you are going to raise with some hands that are blocking the fives. For example, something like 4, 6, 7, 8. It's a hand that could be a raise some percentage of the time. Maybe not that often. 5 is just a call. Aces. Okay, aces is just a raise. 30% of the time. And yeah, you use some hands to raise some percentage of the time, like 10% or something like that. But yeah, normally it's just a fold, right? I think I I, mm, I don't particularly like this call, but GTO apparently says to call with backdoor hard draw. Think I think calling seems reasonable. You are not blocking the 4-5. Yes, you have the nut an 8, which is going to give you the nuts, and to backdoor flush draws, but this has to be a check. I would say 100% of the time, just because he's going to have a lot of aces on his range. I think. Well, what I was thinking is that with the six of hearts, maybe you're a bit allowed to bet. Also, he's not that likely to have 5-7, but it's just a mix between betting and calling here. I think, yeah, just leading with your very nice straight road. I think that you could get falls from something like ace jack 10-9 kind of hand, which could check back the flop. Against two opponents, I mean, yeah, you have the ace of hearts. Oh, you have, well, yeah, you have the ace of hearts, you have spades, and you're blocking a bit with those sevens. So apparently, it's better just to bet. It's close though. Without backdoor hearts, I don't know, with the ace of hearts, you're actually betting, having the ace of hearts and the seven blocker. I think this is just a fold. Um, you could be already dead. Or okay, it's queen nine. Well, this has to be a check. It's a check 100% of the time. You have the ace of hearts, but you have showdown values. I think it's better just to check. Also, Jack Jack 10 is a board which is a bit dangerous for your 3 betting range. It's much better if you're up against, I don't know, 5-5-7 or 5-5 Jack, something like that, since he could have raised with a Jack. So, yeah, here betting with the Ace of Hearts would be turning our hand into a bluff, kind of. So, it's better probably just to check back. Even with the Ace X of Hearts, you're just checking back. With three hearts, actually, you are betting, and the reason is that mm, you are not going to overflash your opponent as often, and you are not going to make a flash as often. So you are betting with that hand, and if you get check raise, you're probably just smacking on the flop. Probably not sure about that, but this is probably a fold. It's tempting to call, but you have Jack 10. This is nice as a call. And hands that you're going to raise are, for example, Jacks and spades, or 10 with a spades, just a check raise. And also, if you have tens and the spades, Jack and the spades, and the nut flash, you're also going to raise because your opponent is a bit more likely to have the king high flash. With fours and spades are just going to raise as well. And yeah, with ace x of spades, you tend to raise, but it's going to depend a lot on your blockers. If you have something like ace queen deuce with no, I mean, ace 9 deuce, ace 10 9 deuce, ace 10 deuce deuce, when you have no blockers to the full houses or to pair of your opponent, you tend to raise. However, if you have something like mm, ace king jack deuce, ace jack ten deuce, ace queen jack deuce. When you are holding a jack or a 10, you are a bit more likely to just call, right? For example, ace jack and two spades is a hand that you're going to call most often than not, unless you have ace jack jack, in which case, and the space, in which case you're going to raise because you're putting your opponent more on talking high flash. Okay, guys, have fun.